ShopTalk is back. With the support of LSETF, we're sat down with some young, brilliant entrepreneurs to learn the secret behind their success so that just maybe we can do the same thing. How have you been? How's life?
Good. COVID has been something, though, I gotta say. It hasn't been easy, but I'm here.
Yeah, you're physically here.
I'm physically here. I think 2021, I'm mentally here as well. I think 2020 was such a blur. I was just like, I just want to survive. I don't really want to go out. I didn't want to see clients as well. I was just sort of like detached even from work because I just felt like, you know what? I just felt like everything around me was just a bit overwhelming. You had COVID. You had people dying every time on the news, always sad news. And it was just... And of course, we had the issue here too. I don't know if you're allowed to speak about it.
That one hit me a little bit. I'm not even lying. Not a little bit, quite a bit. So the day of NSARS, like the day the shooting happened, happened to be Alicia's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And so it was quite like a hard-hitting one because we had made plans and all this kind of stuff. And obviously you're limited in what you can do anyway because there was COVID and people couldn't go out, but I'd at least try to invite people over. And so they delivered a load of food and we're just kind of getting into a vibe. And then they had announced the curfew. So all my friends were like, they can't come over.
Of course.
People showed up for a little bit and then dashed off. And you're trying to make the day special. And then all the shooting and stuff happened. And it was so close. Like for the next couple of days, we were hearing gunshots. Like,
I heard gunshots.
Very close by. And it was like, is this life? Do you go
I mean, you're dealing with COVID on the left and you have NSARS on the right. It's crazy. And so close to home as well. Because I know a lot of people actually went to protest. I wasn't around. I was in Ghana.
I went one of the days. I went one of the days. At that time, it was chilled. I feel like we were protesting. We know, but you know our problem with our generation, right? So I separate our generations. That's my that's a big thing for me, right? And I think about it because yes, I mean, I'm here, want to talk a lot about, I guess, entrepreneurial business and all of that kind of stuff. But like, how do you develop that oneness? Because it's so important to shift that culture and that mindset for me, right? That we go from being that everyone's just trying to survive for themselves or eat for themselves. How do you begin to actually change the mentality in Nigeria where we can actually stand together, where there's actually that oneness? We talk about it a lot, but like, where do we start? Especially when the numbers are as big as they are.
Do you know, for me, I would always say the very, very first thing to even achieving that is literacy. That's what it is for me. I feel like we've been able to have bad governance for as long as we have because the average person doesn't know what they're entitled to as citizens of this country. Which is why, during election time, when I hear things like, they paid someone to vote for 500 or 1,000, that could never happen abroad. That could never happen if you were educated, if you were exposed. Because if you knew that this 500 or 1,000 is literally one meal versus the next 4 years of your life, if you understood what that meant, you wouldn't sell it for as cheap as 500 naira. In America, for example, you have town hall meetings. It's almost like having a local government, for example. So, for example, they have a budget and they will basically explain to people, this is how we are spending your money. If there's a bad road, they would call you out and basically tell you, there is a bad road. What's going on as a local government chairman? Or what's going on as a mayor of this town? Or what's going... But here, people feel, I'll never ever forget, my driver had this conversation with me one time. He said, I think they're fixing one of the major roads. I want to say maybe Kingsway Road or something. And they said, Ambode is working. And I said to him, like, what is he doing? Not because I don't think he was working, but I just wanted to understand what he meant. So I said, what do you mean by Ambode is working? He said, he's fixing the roads. That hurt me. I'm like, he's supposed to fix the roads. If you say he's working, it has to be anything additional for what you expected him to do. Because he is supposed to do these things. But the average person has accepted that, you know what, everybody goes in there with fake promises, they enrich their lives, and then they leave. If we are not educated, you cannot challenge the system. That's what the problem is. Because I feel like we're blessed by having these numbers. We don't understand that right now, but we are blessed by having these numbers. So look at China, for example. They use those numbers. China's the biggest manufacturer. They manufacture everything. The smallest of things. Do you know that right now, the pins that we use, the pins, for like tailoring or whatever that you use to hold the clothes together. Do you know we don't make those in Nigeria?
I mean, I can't say it surprises me.
I mean, it doesn't, because we don't even have the electricity. But the point is, we have the numbers. So we should be on that scale. But once again, if people are not even educated enough, how do they fight their government to give them better? How do they tell their government, we want electricity? Yeah. For me, it's not even, it starts from the little things. It's things like the dirt.
Yeah.
Why are some places as dirty as they are? You supposedly have structures in place to clean Nigeria, right? So or Lagos, for example. So if you have lawnmowers cleaning, why is the place so dirty? If the place is not, so the average person, right, is literally thinking about eating. That's what it is. If you're not eating, or if you're hungry, for example, because I get angry when I'm hungry, but I haven't eaten, I'm like, oh my God, I can't think straight. So if you have no food, you can't think about anything. So based on that, we can't.
So, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, I know that there's a lot of things that have to be done better in terms of the infrastructure of the country as a whole, right? But when we look at the individual, and yes, they could be more better educated and everything. One thing I've always witnessed or considered as an opportunity in Nigeria, right, is actually, like you said, it's on some point, it's where we are, in that there's certain things that I can do as a business in Nigeria that I can't do abroad. One, because the competition already exists. It's halfway. It's already being done by so many people. And Nigeria creates an opportunity in and of itself that there's so much needs to be done. That there are opportunities for people to actually create stuff, right? So what becomes the problem in the end? Like you said, even the pins you use for sewing are not made or manufactured in Nigeria. What then can be done? One, to either empower people to be able to do it, right? Or to let people begin to have the realization that there are needs that they can potentially meet. What would it take to be able to kind of give those people a leg up, to that opportunity to start to create things for themselves, to create opportunities for making some form of wealth? Because there's so many things that can be done.
Here's my thing. Honestly, I do hope that one day I'm able to be in a position to make a change. I really, I'm passionate because I actually want to make a change. I honestly believe that we need a total cleanse. Like, the country needs a total cleanse, because it's as little as you can give your driver now. Let's say your driver is very good at, let's say graphic design, for example, and you tell him, you know what, I'm going to buy you a computer, or you know what, I'll send you to school. You know that money you give him, because he's used to cheating the system, or he believes everyone cheats the system, you can give him that laptop. He can sell that laptop and go for, quick wins, right? As opposed to actually investing in a longer goal, which is obviously, because he believes, or the average person believes, that going to school, getting this degree, nothing happens afterwards. So why don't I just, do something quick and easy that doesn't require much thinking or much of anything to do, which is why you have scammers, which is why you have the government, people going into government to make quick money. So for me, I think it's everyone just believing, or everyone just taking a step back and saying, you know what do we want for this country? It's only then. Because even when you have staff or whatever it is, I try to empower my staff, for example, but you still have the bad ones who just believe, this woman has money, let me steal a machine, or this woman has, do you understand? So it's a mindset. That mindset has to change. And I feel like if you could start all over again, this is what I would say. I would say, first of all, is education. People need to understand what's right and what's wrong, and what's accepted and what's not accepted. Then, obviously having the right people in power. Because here's the thing, half the people that we are in government right now are totally clueless. A lot of them have, old ideas and are not willing to change. And in my opinion, anybody over, no joke, 60 has no business in government. I think you need to allow for young, fresh minds to come. Because here's the thing, you and I, we had the privilege of going to school abroad. So we've seen things differently. We've seen how things can be done, for example. Even just having, and I'm not saying we have to be in government, but just being able to advise whoever it is that's in government. But you don't have them doing things like that. They believe they know so much. But I'm like, if you know so much, why is $400 naira and going up constantly? And it's not even about it going up. It's one thing for it to go up. It's another thing for you to have a plan for it to go back down.
Yeah.
You have no plan for it to go back down because you keep on putting older people in government who are stuck in their ways and haven't seen new ideas or know how to change things. So for me, it's a whole system that needs to go. It's a whole, and I feel like everyone's just sort of like giving up. Everyone's just like, oh, let's just pack our bags, let's just leave the country. And I totally get that because I'm that way sometimes. Like, sometimes like, I don't need to be this stressed. I have a British passport, I can leave, but I just feel like we all need to stick it out together. If we want this country to be better, we literally have to stick it out and just, in whatever little ways we can, try and make a difference. Because even if I try to like tell my staff, for example, I hope that, for example, they will go out and, do the same things. But I'm only one person. So the more of us that do it, then of course, the better.
Okay. Let's tone it down a bit. Let's calm down and just drive. let's deal with the man. How did you get into fashion? Or drove your passion for it?
Honestly, sometimes when I look back, I'm just like, how did I get here? I'm like, I don't think I really had that one serious conversation with myself where I'm like, Toju, this is what I'm going to do, this is the plan. I don't think I had that. My parents, when they got married, were designers as well. Well, my dad really is, because he's actually an architect. My mom sort of helped out, so I was around that growing up. My grandmother as well was a designer. She actually made clothes for lawyers, actually, like the coats and stuff. My great-grandmother on my mom's side, same thing. So it's just like I've been sort of surrounded by it. And I just knew I wanted to do it, I guess. I just always felt like I wanted to be... I'm a creative person in general. So I just always felt like if I was always put into a box, I never thought I was going to succeed in that way. So I just told my parents I wanted to do it. And of course, there's a long thing about get a degree.
Law school.
Get a degree first and we'll support you. I'll never forget that conversation. And I was like, okay. I also wanted to be a lawyer. So I was like, okay, I'll get my law degree. And I got my law degree. And after that, it was like, okay, I want to go to fashion school. And like, no. Lawyers don't act like that. They get their masters and then, I was like, okay, let me do my master's first. Because I wanted to leave England to go to fashion school. So I did my master's. And after that, I was like, oh, just come back to Nigeria, do Nigerian law school. And I was like, no, I'm going to Milan now. And then I basically just did it. And I think when I got to fashion school, it was just like, okay, I was so gingered. I was so excited, because my school was literally in the heart of Milan and you're surrounded by all the big names. You had Alexander McQueen, literally opposite. You had Tom Ford, you had Dolce & Gabbana, like literally. So you walk into school and you just see lots and lots of like fashion stores. And then we also had like designers come into, like guest speakers, for example. So I just felt like I was going to come back to Nigeria and just, Let
me tell you an embarrassing story that I have about Alexander McQueen.
Okay.
So I remember, I don't know anything when it comes to fashion. Let's put it that way. Let's start with that. Okay, so I remember Kate Middleton wore an Alexander McQueen dress for her wedding. And there was just all over the news as things were when they were getting married. And I didn't know who that was. Do you know what I mean? I was just thinking, okay, it's fashion, right? So the likelihood is it's probably a girl. So I was like, oh, Alexandra McQueen. And people were like,
Alexandra.
Do you realize it's a guy, right? Another embarrassing story to do with fashion, just while we're here. I also, when I was younger, boarding school, I had this girl I really liked. So I was like, I want to go buy some like perfume or something and give it to her. And so I bought this Bulgari perfume, and I hadn't even heard of it at the time, right? So, because the Bulgari logo, the U is a V. Yeah. I was like, oh, do you like the BVL Gari thing? My brother and my sister took the piss.
Oh my gosh!
What is BVL Gari? What are you on about? Yeah, so I need to learn a lot when it comes to the fashion space.
But I think with fashion, you're always learning, because I'm still learning. I still see some designs. I'm like, oh, wow, how do we put this together? I have a client who gave me an Alexander McQueen dress, actually, as inspiration for a dress that she wanted. And she even sent me, like, the video how to make it. And literally putting it together, I was like, wow. I'm still learning years in, so don't beat yourself up. You'll always be learning.
There's some things that are just a little bit too embarrassing. You should beat yourself up.
Yeah, that one, but we forgive you for that one just because I want to believe you're much younger.
I was younger, so it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, how do you, so you started, right? How did you first get onto the scene? I know you did a fashion show in 2010, if I'm correct. Or was it 2011 when you first came back? I think it was like Arise Fashion Week or something like that.
Do you know, it's so weird when I think about it. I don't, like I said, I never had that just conversation with myself where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I just basically, I think the very first time I sort of put on like a fashion show was, I think, 2009. January, I was having a barbecue at my house, and I just basically made clothes for all my friends. And I never forget, my mom's friends came over, and one of them is Auntie Ruth Orsima of This Day Style, and she was like, "Oh, I like these dresses. Did you make them?" I was like, "Yes." Well, design them rather. And I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put the pictures in This Day Style." I was like, "Really?" And that was it, my first feature, just like that. I didn't plan it, you know. And then from there, I was in Bell, Nigeria, and then there was no sort of plan. And then I think I moved back to Nigeria 2010, and then Arise was 2011. I did that, and then I went to New York Fashion Week. We had our own show, my friend and I. She's based in New York. Yeah, because, you know, when you just leave fashion school. So I've been studying law for like 5 years or 5.5 years. So, you know, it's almost like I felt like my designer part of me was suppressed. So I just wanted to do everything. I went to Ghana for shows. I went here, I went there. I was so excited. So, and obviously when I now figured out what it was exactly I wanted to do and how I wanted to make it a business, because obviously the older you get, the more you realize that, okay, it's one thing to be interested in fashion and thing to actually make money from fashion. So that's when I started having like more serious conversations, like, okay, so you've done the red carpet and you've done this. How do you want to make money from this?
What are the questions you have to ask for yourself when you're doing that? When you're deciding to make it a business?
I think the first thing was understanding my own strengths. I know when I was also sort of finding my own feet, I remember a lot of people advised me to do ready to wear. And I did try that, and I enjoyed it, but I just felt like it wasn't really me. As much as I always tell you, Adele, that I'm not a people person.
Which you are.
Which I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. I get so overwhelmed when, you know, clients always want to like my personal time, they want to talk, and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to design and like in the background. But I know that my strength isn't in ready to wear. I know that, or I feel like it's a lot easier for me to make you something that's custom made, because I feel like I want to be part of your experience. You know, I want you to be able to say, okay, it's my wedding day and it's going to be outdoors and it's going to be grand. And I want to feel like I want to add to that, you know? So I realized that's what it was. So obviously in the beginning, I wasn't ready for wedding dresses or anything to do with weddings. So I started off with like ashwabis, for example, because you still ask the same sort of questions anyway. And then I moved on to like bridesmaids dresses. And then I'm like, okay, when I had a bit more experience and I started, you know, dabbling more and more into like bridal wear. And yeah, I would still love to do ready to wear. It's just, I feel like on a scale that I would really enjoy would be like on a larger scale, like on a Zara type model, you know, where you're able to completely detach. Because I feel like in Nigeria, ready to wear, where you're making like 100 pieces or 50 pieces isn't really the same amount of time that you need to make 50 pieces. You know, I feel like I'm able to make one big dress, you know, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that for me, I'd rather use that time to make the one dress, you know, so I'm more into like little details and stuff, so.
Okay. So you studied yourself, you kind of decided and worked out what your strength was. Building a customer base.
Honestly, you know, I've had lots of interns and, you know, I started my school, and that's like a question that everyone asks me. Honestly, I always say this, and I guess it's easier to have this conversation with you. I just feel like it was just God through everything. And I always say to everyone, just put him first, and literally, I want to say hands off, because you also have to be active in what you're doing, but that was literally it. I was just like, I went to God and I was like, you know what, guy, I've told my parents I'm doing this thing, you know, and I don't want to fail. I've never failed at anything in my life. I've never failed at anything. So I'm like, this can't be it, you know? And I just said, God, just direct me, and God, just guide me. And, you know, everything just happens. Like, I literally meet people, I have people calling me. I never forget when I got the call for HP to the collaboration. I was like, I never thought I'd get a call from HP. I didn't have those conversations with myself. It wasn't part of my goal. But once again, I just said, God, this is what I'm going to do, and I want you to help me succeed. And things just happen. I keep working. I do the best that I can, and I pray. But a more realistic answer would be, a more realistic answer would be, I think I was just lucky to meet the right people. And I'm sure it doesn't work like that for everyone.
Did you know who you felt the right people were? Were there certain people you wanted to meet?
No. When I moved back, no. I was just lucky because when I moved back, I met Tiwa Savage. She was new. She just moved back from England. I just moved back from Milan at the time. In fact, when I met her, she didn't have any singles out. It was just like, oh, I want to be, I'm going into music. I'm like, oh, I'm going to fashion. It's like, okay, let's work out together. And we just collaborated for like a year and a half, 2 years. And obviously from dressing her, the more popular she became, it just became easier for me to meet people because I became a name or a person that people trusted, So it was like, okay, if you're, for example, on Instagram and you see Tiwa wearing a dress made by Toju, you're like, okay, if Tiwa can wear Toju, then I can wear Toju. And it just made it a bit easier.
That's interesting because one thing that I'm seeing a lot, right, is in generally like following and looking at entrepreneurs is power of like collaboration. And, for some people it's, I'm partnering in my business with this person because this person has certain gifts that I don't have. But for you, obviously, it being that idea of I have this person and I'm willing to work with this person. Watching that person grow helps me grow. Because we have a tendency in Nigeria. I think it's a tendency of our generation generally to want to hustle for yourself. And we've talked about it when we're talking about Nigeria. Generally, we talked about that everyone's trying to feed themselves. No one's thinking about the collective growth. Good. But you being able to, your business was able to grow simply from collaborating with someone. And that would have helped her as well because people liked her style. Right? And so realizing that you don't have to go down the road by yourself.
It goes back to what we said about Nigeria, growing as well. And every time, that's always my answer to most people. I'm like, you need to collaborate. When I was growing, I had a friend who was a photographer, Obi Sumter. Obi? Yeah. And we would shoot together because, he was also growing, I was growing. We had friends who were makeup artists who were also growing. We had friends who were models who, So it's everyone coming together, pulling off each other's strengths and, growing. Yeah.
I clearly just need to make better friends. No, because I realize this, right? Because I have so many conversations with different people. And the idea, the amount of, especially when you're starting off for something and there isn't a lot of financial capital to do it, right? Because you're usually thinking or you're worrying about, can I afford this photographer to do these photos? Or can I afford this person? But if you suddenly get into positions of collaboration with people, then you can source and build businesses and spaces that you didn't know, or you'd be stuck if you're trying to do it by yourself. So suddenly you're collaborating with someone who, yes, maybe they're relatively fresher at it, in like you said, with photography, and so they want to get their photos out there, and the fact that they're taking photos out there, and you want to get your clothes out there. And so we can actually work together. And so just paying more of an eye to who can I collaborate with.
I think, first of all, before even going that far, look within your circle as well. Because you definitely have one friend who is into fashion and wants to be, behind a camera. And you might have a friend who's like a makeup artist. You have a friend who, is into hair, for example. Either she sells the hair or she's a hairstylist or just different things. And I think, honestly, another thing that really helped me is, I moved back in 2010. And I want to say that was an era where things sort of picked up with like social media as well. I feel like anything prior to that wouldn't have been.
Yeah, because social media was not a thing.
It wasn't
really
a thing
before then.
Exactly. So you had a lot of people who were probably established even before that, but they weren't able to maximize of social media because obviously, like I said, collaborating with Tiwa, for example, just made it a lot easier for me to just boost my clientele. But the people who were doing it, just by word of mouth or whatever, it would have been a lot harder not having that sort of collaboration to just pick up quickly on social media. So
how do you deal with pressure to go outside of your niche market? Because I feel like sometimes, or was there any of that pressure early on? You talked about the idea of people pressuring you to say it might be a good idea to do ready to wear, right? How do you make that decision of this is me and I'm sticking to it even when maybe it's taking longer for things to grow?
Like even with COVID time, because obviously with COVID, I was scared. So I wasn't going to work. So I know, and I told my staff to just stay back. For, I guess COVID, everyone's thinking about just surviving. And there were no weddings as well. So a lot of people say, just do right to wear, like fast fashion. And I just thought to myself, not in a bad way, but I felt like I built my brand to be more of, in quotes, a luxury brand. So to do it as a ready to wear would have to be a whole new line. And I just didn't think I was ready for that. I felt like if I was going to create a new line of something, it would be something totally different, but still in the luxury line, at least for now. And obviously that's what I'm doing, as my school. I'm also hopefully going to interior at some point. So yeah, I just feel like, for me, I guess I'm very strong-willed. My no is no. So I never really feel that sort of like overwhelming pressure. I mean, I get it. I get the pressure, but I'm just like, I don't want to do it. Because I put my heart and soul into everything that I do. And I'm like, if I can't give 100%, then.
How do you scale intentionally, but at the same time, organically?
That's a very interesting question. For me, I think as I grow, like I said, as I was growing, I didn't have plans written down. I just knew that I wanted to learn, because I always say this, fashion school just teaches you almost like the principles of design. It doesn't teach you the realities of design. So I just almost felt, at one point I felt like I was taking every single thing that came my way. And I got to a point where I was like, no, you're not even learning from your mistakes. You're not learning, for example, it was things as little as the right linings to use or the right zips to use. So I just thought to myself, like I said, I want this to be a long-term thing. So I just had to just dial back and be like, if I'm overworked, I'd just be like, okay, we can't take any more orders, for example. Or if I feel stressed out with clients, I'd be like, enough for now. And for me, it doesn't matter if I do 100 dresses a month or 20 dresses a month. I just feel like I want to be able to do those 20 dresses and do them properly and be able to manage the situation. Because as you know, making a dress is not just about me. It's not just about the material. It's also about my staff. It's literally about them being attentive and, being present. So yeah, it's just me sticking to my long-term plans.
What about the culture, right? And your personal experiences feed into how you make dresses?
Wow, these are tough questions, yo. What about the culture and my personal experiences? I don't really like cut corners in general. That's just me in general. Like, I like to go out to eat. I want to eat the best food. I want to eat. So for me, I feel like if you're able to charge a certain amount for the best quality of something, then that's exactly what you should give. Sometimes, especially with like COVID, sometimes you have people who say, I really like this, but I can't afford this right now. Or yes, even with that, yes, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but I won't do something if I felt I wasn't proud to say I had made this outfit. So, and that reflects me as a person, in terms of just feeling like I have a high standard. So I try to obviously put that into everything that I do. So, yeah, that's just basically it. Or the culture. Yeah, so with regards to culture, I just try to, instill that into my staff, weekly meetings, and just basically try and, it's tough. I try though.
You made what you wear.
Yes.
What inspires? Because I know you're different in that, like you said, you don't do ready to wear. You're not doing something simply out of personal inspiration. A lot of the time you're doing something out of what the person wants and what would encourage, make them happy, right? Specifically. When you're making something like this, what feeds outside of the intellectual knowledge of fashion, right? What drives the uniqueness to your brand?
Where are these questions from,
man? I'm a deep person. I want to know the truth. I want to get in there.
You mean for my personal outfits or for clients now?
Let's start with personal and then we'll get to clients.
For me, I'm all about comfort. That's just what it is. I want to be stylish, but still comfortable in what I wear. So for me, I'm coming for this interview with Adelu. I love trousers. I generally feel comfortable in trousers. And these are basically pajamas. as they're called. And just basically pants and a loose, comfortable shirt. And you can either dress it up, dress it down, you know. And in general, it's about where I'm going and how I want to feel when I get there. So sometimes if I'm going for dinner, for example, I might decide I want to wear something short, I want to feel a little bit sexy, for example, but not too revealing because that's never my style. I never want to cringe when I look at my clothes. My mom, for example, shows me some outfits. She's like, "Oh, what was I thinking?" I never want to do that. So I'm not really into trends as much. I'm more into comfort and classic. So even like my design for other people is more, yes, it's about your personal style, but it's my interpretation of your style, if that makes any sense. So I'm also putting my own twist on what you think your style is. So it's also pushing you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but still maintaining what your reservations are. For example, if you're not a revealing person, I'll never, make you something revealing, but then I'll definitely try and push you out of your, just so you look a bit different on your big day, but still like yourself. I never feel like you should go from looking like a princess to looking like, sexy Scarlet or something, So, yeah. For me, it's about where you're going and being comfortable.
There's something you said, because generally, right, I'm the kind of person that believes in positive affirmation, right? Just generally. But what I'm noticing seems to be a trend. And something that you said when you were starting off is, I don't want to fail. Where does fear of failure come in as a motivation in business?
I think honestly, it started right from the beginning, I think. Just having my name out there. My brand is my name, it's my name, it's my face. So that fear is every day. That motivation is every day. Because it's like, it happens in businesses, not just in mine. I said this to someone the other day. One of my students, I said, don't be afraid to fail. You shouldn't want to fail, but don't be afraid to, when I say fail, I mean make a mistake. Because at the end of the day, no business is perfect. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with machines, for example. So for me, that's having my name out there, my brand, it's myself. So if I mess up an outfit, it's going to be, Toju messed up my dress.
I was going to ask about the whole aspect because you like to be a bit more in the background, right? Generally.
That's only recent. It wasn't like that in the beginning.
Because how do you then decide to make your brand your name?
Why did I?
Were there name options or did you always just want it to be?
It's so weird. And I have to shout out to my cousin Bella because she was like, I never forget. So when I was in fashion school, I was thinking all these names, all these Italian names. Because of course I was in Italy. So I was like, oh, there's the Bellissima and all sorts of things. And she was like, what? That's not even you. You want it to reflect who you are. You want it to be something that you build and you pass on for generations. I was like, yeah. Because Louis Vuitton, it's a name. Dolce & Gabbana is their name. Alexander McQueen. I was like, yeah. Why am I not doing that? Pros and cons, though, gotta say. Pros and cons.
Were you always, prior to starting Toju Foyeh, was your name always shortened?
It was always Toju Foyeh. So weird. I have a bracelet my mom gave me when I was 5. I still have it. I still wear it all the time. And it always had Toju Foyeh on it. So I've always been Toju Foyeh. I was wondering,
was that like a brand thing that I decided to...
I've always been Toju Foyeh. So it was easy in that regard. I don't regret making it my own name. It's just, obviously, that's just added pressure because at times when I'm not perfect or at times when I make a mistake, everyone remembers that name because it's a name. It's not, it's not like Black Tree, for example. If that was the name of my brand, it wouldn't be Black Tree where it's like totally faceless. It's my name. So when you go out in public, I mess up some girls that's like, oh, that's the person that messed up my dress or something,
Because where is that space? Because I was having conversations and one thing that seemed to show is when you look at successful businesses, right? I'll use one that doesn't have someone's name, for example. So something like Nike or Nike, whatever. Right? You don't say, oh, I don't even know who the founder is. I don't know what his name is, right? You don't say, oh, this person, I love this person's thing. You just say, I like Nike. Now, how do you, right, being that your brand is also named after you, separate yourself from your brand? And how do you develop your brand in a way that it's not, people might be seeing the brand, but they're not always just seeing you as a person, but they're seeing the quality of your brand as a whole, especially like, because I mean, again, maybe also because, you know, she's come and gone. Someone like Coco Chanel, no one is thinking when they look at Chanel, they're not specifically just thinking of her. There's something I want to be sure if I'm going to say something like right? They're not necessarily just thinking of her. They're also they're thinking about the brand. And so, how do you do that with your business when your business is named after you?
Okay, so here's the thing. Just to go back to Nike, Nike mass produce, right? And even Chanel. She's mass producing. I mean, obviously on a smaller scale or whatever, but still mass producing. Right now, obviously, I'm not mass producing, so it's kind of hard to 100% detach Toju from. I even have that, and I tell you sometimes when I have clients who come into my office and like, I want to see Toju specifically. That's because my business is on a smaller scale. But you would never go into Vera Wang, for example, and ask to see Vera because you're like, you know, the dresses are, you know, you go in, you place an order for something that's already in there. But I'm offering you something that's unique. Obviously, by God's grace, as my business grows and I get investors, hopefully, then I'm able to detach completely. Because obviously, once you have the investors and you have more structures in place, you know, it's not about tailor-made services. It's now, yes, tailor-made still, but it's not 100% custom made for you. It's now you're picking something out of a catalog or something like that. So it's a lot easier to detach. But at this scale, not as easy.
Are there certain, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, but are there certain like values that you want people to associate once they think of your brand?
Oh, definitely. I think 3 words, I guess, that would describe my brand would be elegant, timeless. Okay, maybe 4. Elegant, classy, I guess, the same thing. Timeless, chic, sexy a little bit, but still sophisticated, you know? I personally would never want to make something that I could never wear 100%. As I know we don't have the same taste, for example, as some of my clients, but I never want it to be something where I see it, I'm like, oh my God. Like, for example, I would never make a dress that's like high slit and backless and her boobs out and her, you know, that's just not me as a person. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just not me. So I want my clothes to still have that element of sophistication that I feel like
In terms of the idea of scaling, and obviously you're in this place where people, like you said, are naturally, when they want a Toju Foyeh made dress, they want a Toju Foyeh made dress. How do you, if you're talking about scaling, is there a time and a place in which you foresee yourself getting to a place where, you know, if you've taught your culture, let's say, to other people, because I know that obviously you now started the Toju Foyeh Institute, right? That you can trust that if your client isn't seeing you, they're still going to get a Toju Foyeh dress.
Not at this scale, no. Unfortunately, no. Not at this scale, because the average person who's paying that premium price right now doesn't see why they're not seeing me, because that's what they feel they're paying for right now. Because I'm not making 100 dresses a month, right? So it's kind of like, if you're only making 20 dresses a month, why can't I be one of the 20 people that you get to see? But if I'm making 1,000 dresses a month, you already know you can't see. So I think right now it's impossible. But I also feel like, from my personal experience, getting that one person that's able to represent you when you're not there is almost impossible. Whether it's from the dedication that you put into your business or the precision you put into your business, is just almost impossible. You need to just have like a good team and just hope that one person is slacking, you have other members of the team to help balance things up, you know? So
talk to me about why you got into the shift. I won't call it a shift because it's not like you've left Toju Foyeh, but Toju Foyeh Institute.
Even before I opened up the institute, I did little things. I always go for social media week, for example. I go and give talks even at Grange. That's my alma mater. So I enjoy that. I enjoy speaking to people about my experience. I enjoy impacting knowledge. I feel like it's very important for us to actually share. If we're going to grow, either in the design community or Nigeria as a whole, we need to be able to share experiences. Like I said, I went to fashion school, and all I basically learned from that was the principles of fashion, not the reality. feel like a lot of people want to go into fashion and don't understand that it's not just about you sketching something. That's the easiest part. You can literally be on your bed and sketch something, but that is not even a tenth of what goes on, in the business. It's about your right tailors. It's about, the right pattern drafters. It's about the right system in place for your customers. And like I said to you earlier, I'm still learning. I wouldn't say my business is perfect. I have my own challenges as well that I still go through, but it's important to constantly learn. And I think you all can only learn by sharing. I feel like even at times where I get stuck and I share my experiences with other designers and they're like, oh yeah, this is how I did. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'll do things this way. So I think it's also important, even besides even just teaching, just even having colleagues that I'm able to share my experiences with and learn from theirs as well.
What would you say? Someone's starting, right? In fact, because I am. Right?
You gotta pay.
What would you say are 3 important questions that I should be asking someone like you if I decide to get, going into fashion? What are, 3 very important questions you need to know about yourself, about your brand, about, what are you trying to create?
I think what area of fashion you want to go into is very important. If it's made to measure or ready to wear. That's a very important question that you need to ask yourself if you're starting up, because obviously it's 2 different business models. Second thing I'll say is your price point, because that also helps determine obviously fabrics that you use. And then also your personal style as well, and how that could be, how that could be interpreted, how that could basically, let me think of the right word, how that could sell in the market as well. So for example, if you're a bit more bohemian, for example, you do know that with the way society is right now, it's, probably a very, very small percentage of people that would, be into that type of fashion. So that's another thing, your personal style and how that also relates to the market that we're in.
So you mentioned, and I know it, and I just want to get into the technical ideas of what that looks like. Right? So let's say that I'm going into, what are the differences in business model that I should consider, right? If we're talking in terms of going to ready to wear or custom-made.
Ready to wear is more capital intensive, as you know, because obviously you're buying stock, hoping that someone's going to like it and buy it. And of course, if it, God forbid, doesn't sell, then you're stuck with this stuff. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, we don't have enough channels for distribution. I know if you notice, when you're in London, for example, you have Oxford Street, right? On Oxford Street, you have maybe 3 or 4 different Zara outlets on there. So literally, if it doesn't sell on Oxford Street, they move it to Marble Arch. If it doesn't sell in Marble Arch, they move it to Westfield. If it doesn't sell, you know what I mean? They have their channels. So by moving it around and around, they're able to sell it. So it might not sell in London, but it might sell up north in Manchester, for example, right? In Nigeria, then you're then stuck with that. And then perhaps think about maybe going to Ghana, going here and going there. So that's one thing. With made to measure, bespoke, it's a lot more about, customer relations, because as you know, right to where you pick up, you go. Bespoke is more personal relationships. So if you're not a people person, it's probably not the best for you. And then what else would I say? Also, it also depends, like you said, about production. If you don't want to be involved in production as such, if you want to just, if you just want to outsource your production, then of course, ready to wear is for you. But you can't outsource your production, or at least you shouldn't outsource your production if it's made to measure, because it's a lot more detail specific, You need to be there to make sure, yes, the length is this and that, unless, perhaps a very good factory, but factories are used to producing in bulk. So they don't have the time to, attend to every single request you have on one particular garment, So that's another thing that you need to consider.
Social media. You're very good at it.
Am I?
Yeah.
I think I'm slacking, It's exhausting.
I see. What's the role of social media in terms of and how much does social media help you, right? Not have to, I guess, spend so much on like, promoting your business and all that kind of stuff, because you work on a lot. Like, what role does social media have in just helping push your brand?
I disagree with that. With not having to spend a lot. Yes, man has spent a lot in. No, because here's the thing, right? I think before social media, what happened was you were paying for magazine ads, right? Or billboards or TV ads or whatever. And social media now is so competitive. It's not just about you making a nice list and putting it on social media, because that doesn't get the likes. You need to be more conscious of what you're putting out there. So you need to get a photographer, videographer, hair, makeup, model, someone who's able to actually sell your outfit. So the full-on production. Even though it's just a 1-minute clip on social media, it's still a full-on production. So it's still capital intensive, or at least it should be if you do want to get the kind of attention that you're looking for. The only way I would say is a bit cheaper is obviously if you're collaborating with people, maybe celebrities or socialites or whatever it is, then of course it's a lot easier for you, because all you need to do is give them your clothes. But once again, you're giving to them for free in return for something. So, like I said,
what are the perks of social media? What has social media helped you do? Because you said, we talked about it earlier, you mentioned, obviously when you moved back, social media was now kind of something that was growing. Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Social media has made it easy to obviously get an audience all around the world. It's not, you're not just limited to people around you, which is what, like I said, the benefits of me starting when I did, because it was global. Unlike people who were doing it local, so it was just people in the area that would have heard about you. Now we ship dresses to Australia, we ship dresses to America, so it's worldwide, literally, and it's like at a minimum cost. I'm not having to pay for ads in Australia, so it's good in that regard.
How do you do that, by the way? Just
how do you ship?
Because your business is, like you said, it's very personal, right? So how do you even have those interactions with someone?
Honestly,
Australia?
It's so what I used to say this before, even before COVID. I used to be like, why can't we just talk online? Why can't we just talk on the phone? WhatsApp video, you still see my face. So COVID has sort of made it easier in that regard. So, I did that even before COVID, because I would have, obviously like virtual consultations. But like COVID has just made it like a standard now. I have people who are in their houses or in their offices in Lekki and are calling me on video. You still have to give them that personal touch. It's not, people don't want to be detached from the process, so.
Okay. Just to wrap things up, make things light, would you make your own wedding dress?
It's so weird. I get asked that question a lot. I most likely will. I just can't imagine. I feel like being sport for choice right now, like I said to you, meat this got made for me yesterday, and I just feel like I wouldn't want that freedom or choice taken away from me. So I most likely will, because I want to be able to change my mind when I want to. And it's so weird. I feel like most people have this perception of me, but my dress is going to be so simple. I would just want to get married and just start my life and just, I wouldn't, obviously detailed, yes, but I don't want the longest dress or the biggest dress. I'm not about that. Like I said, I think COVID also just made me sort of calm down. It's like, let's focus on what really matters, So, yeah, I most likely will, and it'll be very simple.
Okay. Any tips for someone going into business? It even have to be fashion, the things that are worth knowing that you've learned on the journey.
Wow, I have a lot to say about that. I think, first of all, just be prepared mentally, Nigeria is a very tough place to do business. I say that all the time. Be in it for the long haul, because there are many things that can definitely break you. And then realizing that you're not alone in your business, or you cannot be alone in your business. You're as good as your weakest link. I say that to myself all the time. And, get them, like you said, motivate them and get them to understand that we're working as a team. So I always tell each person, just because you're sewing something doesn't stop you from looking over your shoulder to see the next person's stuff, or the next person's doing the right thing. So yes, there's that. And then also just having, honestly, having like the right connects, if it's for diesel, just things like that, just so you don't get stuck along the way. And then also just understanding that, Nigeria is a very tough society. There's a certain way that you need to deal with your customers. People are, in fact, not just your customers, It could also be people that you hire or outsource things to. You know, it's just, once again, being vigilant, I'll say, first of all, with your suppliers, being thorough as well. And then with your customers, just be respectful and just understand that Nigerians are the way that they are. Yeah. Not describing them in any word in particular, but just the way that they are. And then, just focus on what you're doing and don't be afraid to fail and don't be afraid to make a mistake. I was saying to one of my students, she made a dress for someone and she said, something happened, the zip popped or something, and she was very upset. And I said, I know it sucks for you in that moment, but you've learned something from it. Yeah. Yes, she's like, but the customer is upset and she go tell other people. I'm like, yes, you go and tell other people, but it's your job to make sure that it never happens again. So even when she goes and tells other people, Adiola made me a dress that the zip popped, for example, if there are 10 other people that Adiola's made dresses for and the zip didn't pop, it will eventually,
you'll overcome that.
You would overcome that. So Christian Louboutin, I bought a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes and the heel broke. And I'm like, I would never go and say he's a bad shoemaker because he's made tons and tons of shoes. So you just have to keep going and your work will definitely speak for you. And just basically don't be discouraged. I mean, I have things happen to me, but I just know that everything happens for a reason and God's by my side and I'm not going to fail. I'm going to succeed. So the energy.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
You're
Toju.
welcome.
And I'm just even honored that you made something very specifically for today. And I'm so pleased. So yeah, thank you so much.
There you go.
Yeah.